This. Hey guys, that was an exciting episode yesterday, and today we are continuing on the second installment of the book, "In Everyone Culture" by Robert Keegan and Lisa Glasgow Leahy. We want to see because this book is essentially talking about company, so I think this is a fitting to have
It
an
is.
exciting conversation.
It is. It really is. Just a reminder, this book's about three. These people, the author studied three deliberately what they called DDOs, deliberately developmental organizations, and really dissected their cultures down, to the the inner workings and got really deep into the leadership teams there, and studied the cultures and wrote a book about like what they do that's different. It's called An Everyone Culture, and it's about becoming a deliberately developmental organization, which is what we strive to be. Just like as we talked about yesterday, with a little bit of a twist, where we actually are only a culture. We're not a business. All these cultures that they're studying are started as a business and they're tied to a business. We are gonna just be a deliberately
So,
developmental
so we're
culture. And
nothing like it. That's what you're
yes,
saying.
right. Well, sort of. We're the inverse. It's the same
Uh,
principles, but just we flipped it around as to what we're starting with.
well, when you
Uh,
flip it around, you're the opposite.
yeah, right. Yeah, right. So no, we're definitely not doing the same thing, but like we can learn from people that are doing similar stuff, just with and put our own unique twist on it. That's what we do, right? This reflection is about uh working on your backhand. So I'm sure True is gonna be like, oh God, it's gonna be a tennis conversation, shit. Well, ironically it is, but there's so many uh elements here that we can unpack. So let me explain what is working on your backhand. So one of the deliberately developmental organizations, we talked about this yesterday, is Bridgewater Capital. Bridgewater Capital is owned by the billionaire named Ray Dalio. It's his baby, and he developed a very deliberately developmental organization. We've talked about this already in previous reflections where we read Ray Dalio's book Principles, and I can, without a doubt, definitively say that is not the culture for Chris Sears, and I could probably guarantee it's not the culture for True either. If I had to guess, but that's okay because like that's kind of the point of all this. And we talked about this yesterday. Like it's totally okay. The point is like you're supposed to find places where you feel like I wrote in this reflection. I was like it being if I were to be hired at Bridgewater, it would feel like a beaver in a desert, right? I would just be like, oh, this sucks. Every single minute I would just look around. I know for a fact what I would do. I would just look at all these people because I kind of did this a little bit at Salesforce, to be honest with you. I just would like look at people and I'm like, oh, you fucking people. Like, like you fucking people. I cannot fucking stand you. Like why do you have to act like this? Like what is wrong with you? And they were loving life and whatever, but like that's a beaver in a desert. They probably looked at probably looks at whatever animals, the armadillo walking by and going, you motherfuckers. Like what are you doing here? Why are you here? Is I'm sure what a beaver would be thinking, but then he's like, well, I got to figure out how to drink some water and figure out how to survive. So I'll do that, but like, if I got to hang out with the armadillos to survive, I will. Like, but I don't want to be here if I don't have to be here. Is the point, right? And that's kind of how I feel about Bridgewater. Now, color me shocked when we started talking about the second deliberately developmental organization, or DDO, that this book covers, and it's this e-commerce company called NextJump. Now, get this: like as the authors are describing NextJump, no joke, I swear to God, True. Like it was like everything that we wanted to do in Clubany is going on at NextJump, where I was like, these are my people. This is a beaver walking into Canada, lakes and streams everywhere, and I'm like, oh, feel that mountain spring air. Look, there's mooses walking by. Like these are my people. This is home. Like that's what it felt like when I heard this, and I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. So they do they have a no forced firing policy. Oh, sorry. I'm just going to read through. They believe in forced job rotations. As soon as you get comfortable, they make you change jobs. They do that. They have a no firing policy. They have a work harder on yourself than you do on your job motto. They have an immersive cultural onboarding program. to mutually determine if you are actually, once you've been hired, whether you actually belong in this culture or whether you don't, and then you either part ways or you don't, right? I.e., core values quest, or you as I'm trying to university, as I'm trying to make happen with True here, but he's not loving that. They have an accountability buddy partner learning program. They have so, like, I know this is no joke. I mean, they had, like, all of this stuff is going on at Next Jump, and I was like, this is the reason why it's ironic is because this is everything that True and I have been doing with Clubbing for and it's not, we didn't copy it from them. Like, this is stuff that we've pulled, agreed, talked about. This is the culture that we wanted to create. Are you talking? Oh, you're on mute, by the way. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds like we're copying them because
right. It does. It was almost like, whoa. Like, I literally started researching this company. I was like, man, I want to work there. Like,
I mean, it's eerie in a way, just because all these things are things we said we want to do, and this book here, it says exactly all the things that we have been dreaming of.
We have been doing this, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, if we have read this book before we started the company, because the thing is, this book you read what 2 years into or 3 years into the company, right?
Year and a half, maybe.
And, right, and so it's eerie how much of the things they say is what we have been talking about.
not just talking about, but doing. I mean, because we've done it with the core values quest. We've done it with, the designs that we put together for that whole entire group of what we've been building Clubbing around, what I've been doing with Clubbing Light. We've been doing this for 2.5 years. So color me shocked, when I was like, holy shit, like, like, this is awesome. This is literally like a beaver, going into Canada, and you're like, oh, I'm home, I mean, it's, I was like, this is awesome. I should go work this. I should go work at this place, but we don't want to, because we're going to go build our own stuff. So, and this is when it gets even weirder. So somebody in their founder group must have been a huge tennis fan as well, because one of the things that they have, that they do, is something called working on your backhand. This is something that each person has to identify. What is your backhand? And so what does that even mean, right? So I've talked to you about this, at length, but every single tennis player that's ever played tennis at any real level knows what I mean when I say work on your backhand, because everybody, it's natural. Your forehand is your dominant shot always. Like, it's the reason why your backhand is always usually people's generally weaker shot is you have to actually pull your dominant hand through, and it's hard to have as much power, spin, control, because you're not really using your dominant hand. It's like you're half using your dominant hand, versus when you're hitting your forehand, it's all of your dominant hand. You can use your whole body. You can go back so much further. There's more torque, there's more power, there's more spin, it's just naturally easier to hit a forehand than with your dominant hand than it is to hit a backhand, because you're turning your body in a different way that you don't naturally do.
Your chest muscles are much bigger than your back muscles. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing about hitting a backhand is natural feeling. I mean, people get really good at it, but it's not natural feeling. Like, a forehand is always just very natural feeling. So, like just like everybody else, my forehand, my literal forehand, whenever I play tennis, like, the first thing that I do, number one go-to strategy, like, it's the easiest strategy you can ever do, is pick on somebody's backhand until they prove that you can play tennis. Like, I mean, that is the strategy. That is always, you walk into a court with somebody you've never played with ever before. It's see how their backhand is first before you do anything else. Like, that is the strategy, right? I mean, it never fails. I mean, until it does, and then you're like, oh shit, like, this person's pretty good with their backhand. I should adjust and start trying to find other areas to exploit, and like. But
chances are that you're gonna exploit the backhand more often than you going for the forehand.
I'm gonna give it every option. Like, I'm gonna really mine that out to make sure. I'm gonna confirm multiple times that wasn't just like a couple lucky shots or something like that. Like, versus the forehand, if they hit a couple good shots, I'm like, oh, okay, all right, then that solves that. Like, I'm not gonna hit it there anymore.
It's probability,
it just is. So anyway, what Next Jump does is they have everybody identify their backhands, right? And this is something that like this is something that for me hit home very, very hard because my backhand, my literal backhand in tennis has always been a source of I don't even know how to describe it, but it's held me back in my tennis career. My forehand is excellent. My personal forehand, like I know a lot of people have a dominant forehand, but my forehand is like really, 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 really solid. Like I love hitting my forehand. I would hit it all day long if I could, and I did. I tried. I was able to just blast through opponents, when I was younger, a youth, and up until I hit probably like playing one singles and stuff like that in high school and whatever. Like I was able to like run around my backhand, literally run around it. Like I was like, oh, I know I don't have a great backhand. I could work on that in practice, or I could just work on trying to hit my forehand really hard because I like hitting the shot. So I would literally run around it and I would try to just whack as many forehands as I could, But when you do that, you get yourself out of balance, you get yourself out of position in the court, you open up the court, even more for somebody that's a good opponent, yada, 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 right? Well, it worked for a while and then until it didn't. Right. And then I started playing higher and higher levels of competition. And that weakness kept getting exposed over and over and over again to the point in time where it was almost so glaringly obvious where it was like, all I got to do is try to make sure that Chris has to hit his backhand and I'll just win the match. Right. And so eventually I just said, I don't really care, fine, whatever. I mean, this is how I'm going to play tennis and I'll either hit a lot of winners with my forehand or I'm going to lose, if I get into grinding out matches with my backhand and and whatever, playing from the baseline and all day long, and that was just what I was resigned to do. That was until I met Amelia, right? And Amelia changed a lot of things, but most importantly, she reminded me that what the value of life in general, and like and when you care about something, like cherishing that. And valuing that and the stuff that does make you feel like you're able to produce meaningful work in this world and your art and the things that make you being a human incredible. That's what she reminded me about, right? So after I lost Amelia and I had this kind of discovery of my own through my own personal trials and tribulations. I returned to tennis, and I at this point in time though I said, you know what, like if I'm gonna get if I really care about this, I should care to get better. And that's what I did. Like I've for the past 3 years, like I've just said I'm gonna get better at my backhand, right? I'm gonna get better at doing this. I'm gonna put in the deliberate practice and the deliberate work. The past month before this, I've spent an entire monthly challenge hitting backhand slices because that's my new backhand. It wasn't just my literal backhand for a topspin shot. There was a struggle. It was like, oh, well, I fixed that. But then what happened once I started to fix these my literal backhand was I uncovered more backhands, whether it be my transitioning from the baseline into the net, or something like that, of having a weakness there when I hit a certain shot in a certain rally and I get to a certain position on the court and I'm like, I can't hit this shot very well. So that's my new backhand. And then if I get into the net finally and I don't have a great backhand volley. So that's my new backhand is my backhand volley. Or when I get into, my point being is like, once you go down this rabbit hole, like your backhands are never ending, right? Like, there's a reflection to come in the future, actually, that's like, you only focus that I want to make sure that I put a caveat here in this conversation. Focusing on your backhands is important only if it's blocking you from getting back to your strengths, right? Like it's you don't need to focus on your backhand unless that is literally limiting you from getting to the things you love to do. And I love hitting my forehand, right? I love running around the court. I love being the aggressor on the court, right? So I say all this with a caveat to say, like, don't just go start focusing on your backhands, like just because you want to focus on a backhand because somebody's saying, hey, go focus on your backhands. Like if you hit a wall in your meaningful work, and you go, okay, I know that I can't go further in my meaningful work unless I fix this area, then that's when you focus on your backhand and you relentlessly focus on it. And you go put in the deliberate practice and the time and to get through that so you can get back to going past that and making your meaningful work even that much better, right? So that's a reflection for the future. I didn't write that on this one because I didn't know that yet. But that being said, though, that's something that I wanted to make sure that I said here because I thought that was important. But anyway, yeah. So this is what this focus on your backhand it is, and you know, once you find stuff you love, like keep pushing, keep getting better, like at it, like because like you love it. Like why would you let yourself not do that? You know, like it's stupid. If you love something. Now, if you don't love it, don't focus on your backhand. Like just stop doing it. Like that's what I wrote at the very end of it. I was like, you know, if you found an identity, if you found an activity that aligns with your values, purpose, and mission in life, it's well worth your effort to focus on your backhands that are stopping you from getting back to what you love. If you don't, go read the reflection from the dip and learn when to quit. You know, so there you go. All right. Anyway, love to get your thoughts.
I am so glad you talk about the caveat at the end because all through the reflection monologue, I was like, I don't know if I can do that because for me, we're talking about like if there's something that's not in line with me, I ain't doing that.
Yeah, fair enough.
But I get your point, and I think that makes the whole thing align with what I've been experiencing and what we've been doing in company. Is because to me, it's important to work on backhand only, like you said, only if that is stopping you from doing what you want to do, which is your
Right.
forehand.
Yep.
That I 100% agree. And I'm glad you said that because otherwise, I would,
No, you're right.
I was gonna challenge you and say,
Yeah.
I don't know about that, Chris.
No, I agree. You know what the book was that. So right after I finished this book, right after I wrote this reflection, the next thing I did that next week was in my 101s. I had everybody identify their backhands in the job, you know, and I explained to them, you know, every Friday when we just have like our like, you know, weekly team connect or whatever. I usually have like a lesson for the week or whatever. And that particular week, it was, you know, focus on your backhand, right? You know, and I made everybody identify what their backhands are. And I was like, let's focus on this. But it wasn't until I read this book called The 9 Lies About Work. And he talked about Lionel Messi's left foot, right? So you know who Lionel Messi is, right?
Soccer
So
player.
he's the world's best soccer player, right? You know, 7-time, you know, player of the year, you know, award winner or whatever. I mean, he's one of the greatest soccer players who've ever played soccer before. Well, Lionel Messi had apparently, I'm not a soccer fan, so I don't know any. I'm taking this from the book, so I don't know anything about his game or whatever, like the nuances of that game. But apparently, Lionel Messi's left foot is like godly and you know, like ungodly good, you know, like the guy can just do anything with his left foot that's ever, you know. So everybody's always known, well, we need to get Lionel Messi to you know, to play with his right foot, right? You know, if we can do that, we can you know, kind of stop Lionel Messi a little bit. Well, apparently Lionel Messi knows this, you know, obviously, and is probably trained to do this stuff. You would think, you know, hey, if your left foot is incredible, like Lionel Messi's left foot is, and people are always going to try to stop, you know, get you to use your right foot. Like you should probably get really, really, really good at your right foot, and you could probably, you know, balance out like your touches and yada 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 and whatever it may be. Well, it turns out that Lionel Messi has like a 10-to-1 touch ratio from his left foot to his right foot. Like he barely ever uses right. He only ever uses it when he absolutely has to, and I'm sure he's trained really, really hard to know when to use it. But it's always to get back to his left foot, right? You know, it's always to get back to your forehand for me. Like, you know, like it's I don't want to get stuck in these battles backhand to backhand with somebody. Like my backhand is good enough now where it is not something you can pick on. Like sometimes I can even make it a weapon. But like if I'm in a match with somebody and I'm going backhand to backhand, probably going to lose the match. Like, I mean, I'm just being honest. I'm not saying that like I have a bad backhand anymore. I'm saying that like that's not my strength, right? Like, so like just because you work on your backhand doesn't mean you literally should use it all the time either. It's just you now are defended, you know, in an area where you were weak, so you could get back to what you're good at, you know?
Yeah, I mean, to me, like I say, I'm like completely agree with you, and I was only like agreeing with you at the last minute because all those things you were saying is all the things go in my head. Because if you say, well, like for example, you take Lionel Messi, right? We're talking about, let's say he's really good with his left foot, right? And then he said, well, I'm going to work on my backhand. Well, if you work on your right foot, your backhand, then you're not working on your left foot, and your left foot will
Right.
will go down, and they say you're not that good anymore. So you're not
Right.
cannot be world class if you say, hey, I'm going to work on my weaknesses. To me, I say work on your strength.
Yeah.
And to me also in life is a wicked environment. It's not a kind environment because the backhand, the tennis analogy, and the soccer analogy. These are it's not 100% like kind environment, but it's
No,
still
it's
more
close.
kind than
Yeah.
wicked, right? And so the thing is, for example, in the tennis, right? There's a lot of ways to mitigate the weakness. Meaning, let's say
Mhm.
in life we don't have to play by ourselves. We can play with other people, and
Right.
other people can cover for your backhand side, whatever it is,
Yeah,
right?
that's true.
In the game, you can do the same thing.
That's a
But in
great point.
life, there's so many ways to mitigate that, and especially with human, we have to have this connection anyway. So
Right.
why shouldn't we get someone else to cover for? It's like for me and you is I ain't going to try to learn how to go do sales because I have you. Why would I do
Right.
that? Because if I do that, then I'm
I'm
not
the
doing
same.
any
I'm not going to
coding.
try to go learn how to code either. Like, I mean,
Exactly,
that'd be
because
the dumbest
I'm
decision I could ever do.
naturally good at coding. So
Right.
even if something brand new comes out, it would take me like a 1/10 of the time for me to figure out how to do
Right.
something versus you, and vice versa. So the thing is, you gotta focus on
That's a
your
good point.
strength to get more incredible. The thing is, no one
Right.
can catch you in that area. You cannot go and do your backhand. That's why I say is I completely disagree with you until the last minute because I was so glad that you said that because that to me makes me hey yeah I think I understand Chris because otherwise I say maybe this is not the Chris I know.
No, no, you're actually you just said something that I hadn't thought of yet either of the whole kind versus wicked environment. That's so spot on too. Like I think it's important to acknowledge you have a backhand and then make sure that you
Yes,
should address it. If if
yes.
if if something is blocking you from producing meaningful work in a kind or wicked environment, like
Mm-hmm.
but to your point, in a kind environment, into a wicked environment, you don't have to do anything technically. I mean, really, you just need to understand that it's there,
You have to
and then
identify and
right.
mitigate.
Right.
Mitigate
Yeah. You don't
could
need to
be like
go
another
fix it
person,
yourself. Right.
right?
Exactly. There's a lot
You,
of different other solutions than you having to do it yourself.
exactly, and that's
That's a
what
good
I'm
point.
saying. In our culture, in our environment, we
Right.
needed the meaningful relationship anyway. And so in a if you take translate that into the tennis world, you probably gonna play with another person next to you that's going to cover for your backhand,
Right.
right? And so in any company, is I don't need to know how to sell. I just need how to produce whatever I'm good at. I'm gonna do just that, and I'm gonna focus on that to get even more incredible. Versus okay, instead of doing more and become more incredible at what I do, I stop doing that and I'm gonna go focus on my weaknesses, and my weaknesses gonna be less than mediocre at best. And
Yeah.
the thing I'm good at, my strength, is suffering because I'm not putting the effort into that anymore. It's distracting the effort and time from that to put into something else. So to me, that doesn't make sense at all
I
in what
agree.
I see,
Yeah.
right? And so that's what I'm saying. It's so glad you said, hey, only if the backhand is stopping you
Hey,
from
this is why it's called the
going
year of
forward.
magical learning. True. This is why it's called the year of magical learning because I'm learning in real time, through these things, right? Ironically, you said something really very very poignant, I think, as well. Ironically, one of my favorite partners. I don't love to play doubles in tennis. Um, uh,
But like I said, tennis is a game we make up, so it's more
it is,
kind
yeah,
than it's more kind than wicked, right?
yeah,
And so that in itself has rule you play by. This rule that we as a human create and construct in life, there's not such rule. I mean,
yeah.
so it doesn't translate well in the analogy of the working your backhand. So it may be translated back into the real world as identify your backhand
I
and
didn't.
make
Yeah,
sure
yeah.
it's mitigated, right?
Yes,
Get
yes.
someone else to get a
Yeah,
a,
I think that's a
a
great point. Yeah,
teammate, get a
yeah.
teammate to cover for your weaknesses. So
Agreed.
if we need a certain number of skills and talent to perform a task, and say, okay, identify, can you do a certain task that's going to cover for the whole project? If it doesn't, then
Not can you just identify it? Do you love it? find people that love the shit that's your backhand
Exactly.
like that's the key when it's in that kind of an environment, because like in a kind environment like on the tennis court, my favorite doubles partner that I play with ever is no shocker. What do you think? Who do you think? What do you think the attributes are? My favorite tennis player that I play with, and I try to play with him all the time.
Guy with good backhand.
He has an amazing backhand. Like his name's Ryan,
Exactly.
and you pair his backhand up with my forehand, and people are like, "Fuck," like we got to play those two, and it really is challenging because he hates his forehand, and I mean I don't hate my backhand anymore, but like I don't love it. Like he
But you
loves hitting his backhand.
would you rather use your forehand? That's my point.
His backhand is his forehand, like, and my forehand is my back. I mean my backhand is my backhand. His backhand is his forehand, right? So when we are paired up on a court together, it's really hard to find a weakness against us to go like, oh well, we'll just pick on this person in this area or whatever. It's like, well,
you can't, right? And because his forehand is not so good, his backhand is incredible, right? Because if his forehand is good and his backhand is also good, and say, it's good, but it's not incredible. It's not world class. That's the thing, is you cannot be world class if you're trying to do everything.
Well, I don't know that either one of us are world class, but like I think.
Well, eventually you'll get there, as long as mean. If you love the game, I guarantee you will become world class. It would go, because to me, is anyone who loves to do stuff, they're gonna spend 3 times, 10 times the amount of time in doing the effort. So let's say for me, it's like I am like addicted to computers, right? I'm on a computer like 12 hours, 14 hours a day. So who knows more about computers than I do? I mean, I can, so you know what I mean. So I'm in the trenches. So something with like food or whatever, I know a bunch of food and the food I like and the ingredients for them. I just know them, right? I'm not really good at it. Like I'm with the coding, and that's what I'm saying is no one spend. I mean, you think about an average person spending the time in the computers. You think about them. I mean, talk about, hey, they spend like 8 hours. I mean, that's a lot already, and they get tired. I've seen people that they can't sit at a computer for more than 30 minutes. It can't do it, right? And to them, it's such a boring job.
Sure.
They cannot do it, right? And so they have to go out and do things and talk to people and whatever. And for me, it's like, I'm the opposite. Is don't talk to me. I need to focus. So I can do that, right? That's what I'm saying. I can sit there and I can give you a solution that is so technical that is far beyond anybody would even stumble by accident upon, because it requires so much concentrated thought to actually come up.
Deliberate practice. I mean, really is what it is. I mean,
but if you're not aligned with that, your body isn't going to allow you to do it. It's going to shut down. And I mean, just like I told you, I stare at the ceiling. Kid you not, like in 5 seconds, my eyes goes down like this. I can't keep it open.
Right? I believe you, because I've been doing that too. You just sparked a thought though in my head about like last month I did the 30-day challenge for sadly for me, my favorite shot, my forehand, my shoulder's been all fucked up for the past 3 or 4 months or whatever. So like it hasn't been my favorite shot. As a matter of fact, it's been a very painful shot. Whenever I try to hit it, it really hurts a lot. And so I've been trying to use my backhand more. And so for my 30-day challenge last month, I did 30 days of tennis because I love tennis. And I was like, I'm going to go work on my backhand slices. I'm going to go work on my backhand volleys. Like that was my main goal, during that time. And I got a lot better at it. But you know what's been happening? I haven't hit my forehand in a really long time. Every day for 30 minutes a day, I was outside just hitting backhand slices and backhand volleys and whatever. And they got a little bit better. I mean, they did. I feel like I've told you, I came back in, I gave you that story. I told you the story about, it just naturally started coming out in some matches and whatever. And I was happy with that. But like the truth of the matter is like, whenever the past couple of days when I've been out like hitting balls and stuff like that, because I'm still been going on with this, trend for 30 minutes of tennis a day, just using my ball machine and going out and or whatever. Like when I've been hitting my forehand, it's been like, what the fuck is this garbage coming out of my fucking forehand right now? Because I haven't been hitting it. Like I mean, I've been only focusing so much on my my backhand slices and backhand volleys and stuff, when I try to go hit my powerful forehand,
Yeah,
even
it
with my shoulder range,
suffers.
it's
It
it's it's
suffers.
it's really it's not been a great shot, to be honest with you. I'm like, oh, I mean, this is no joke. I mean, there was a yesterday, the courts that are like 2 minutes from my house, is the home courts of this small Catholic high school's courts down the street. They don't
Hmm.
have their own tennis courts. They use like a public park that's right,
Right.
maybe like 2 minutes away from like the high school. And they had a match at the courts. So I try to like find like 30 minutes or an hour or something like that in the middle of the day when I have like a tiny break, and I just like rush out of here, rush away from my desk, like, go change my clothes really fast, run down to the course, take my ball machine out and try to go hit for like 45 minutes and then try to make it back and, get unsweaty for like, 5 minutes before I have to hop back on to my next call. Like this has been my typical, like, thing that I've been doing for the past, month. Well, yesterday they were getting ready to play. I did this between 3 o'clock and 4 o'clock. And I had a meeting at 4 and one at 4. I had a meeting from 4 to 5, basically. So I had to get back to my office, i.e., my home office,
Hmm.
and change and get cleaned up before I had these meetings. So I get down there. I was like, oh, there shouldn't be anybody down there at 3 o'clock. It's fine. Well, they were out there warming up because they had a match that day, and
Right.
talk about this goes back to my forehand. I was hitting all these backhands all over the place. And I was like, they look nice. They look nice. But I thought to myself, oh, let's try to impress the high school kids. So I this is no joke. Like, so I was like, I'll hit my forehand a little bit and just try to rip a bunch. And I started hitting them. They were just going all over the place. And I was like, oh,
Like,
I was like,
okay.
what's happening? I was like, this isn't me. Like, I was embarrassed almost. I was like, what am I doing? They're probably watching me going, this guy sucks. Like, yeah. So, this is no joke. I was like, yeah, this is what happens when you forget about your forehand.
Yeah, I
Or
mean,
when
you
you,
have to work on them, otherwise it suffers. That's what I'm saying is, you gotta focus on your strength. There's
right,
so many weaknesses. There's no way you can cover them all. And so I think, in our wicked world, we need to have a meaningful relationship. Like you say, you identify and match the people with their strength to
right,
your weaknesses. And I think that to me is, a win-win. Um,
huge.
it's a win-win, and it's basically foolproof in that sense. Just because whatever weakness that you need, to somebody's world class at it because that's the only thing they do, right? And I think this is what I think.
I think you
Uh,
made it. I think you actually completely changed the paradigm of this conversation and for the better, you brought into the fray the working world is a wicked environment. Like,
it's not this.
it's not a kind environment. Like backhands, like you're right. Like that's not an analogy. So if I told all of my employees to go work in their backhands, they're like, I don't like this. Like, why do I need to do this? Like, I
Yes.
don't want to do this. Like, let me do what I like to do and let other people do what they like to do. That's exactly what our methodology is with clubbing. You're right. I mean, I fucked that up. You're right. Yeah.
Right, because the thing is, the wicked environment is much bigger
Yeah.
and more massive than a kind environment. So you can't take an example from a kind environment into the wicked environment because it doesn't go like that. You have
Yeah.
to go from the other side in, like a wicked, like take an example from a wicked environment and apply into a kind environment, right? So because it can't, because those things are, one is much bigger and one is smaller. You
Right.
cannot take something from a smaller and go and say, hey, it's gonna work here, because there's so much more variables in the wicked environment that whatever works in kind environment probably, most likely, will not work in that environment, just because it's
Yeah.
more variables to
Right.
track,
Well,
right?
you don't need to solve your own problem in a wicked environment, is the point. Like, the backhand still exists in both the kind environment and the wicked environment. Like, that is true. Like, I mean, I think that we would agree on that, right? Like, there is always going to be areas
Right,
that,
but there's
that
the
that people aren't
limitations
good at.
to how much you can take, because you only take the common denominator of the two environments, right? The common
Right.
denominator is there
Yes.
is
Yeah.
a
There
backhand,
is
right?
a backhand.
And
Yes.
I need to identify that, and they both exist in those environments.
Yes.
But inside of the kind
How do you
environment,
solve
there's
that?
there's less there's less variable you need to work on.
Right.
So that's probably like, maybe there's two variables inside of the kind environment. There's like 1,000 variables inside of the wicked environment. So you can't say, well, I'm going to take the two variable and the other 998 variable is going to stay fixed. It's not going to work like that, right? It's going to change its dynamic. And so chances are it's not going to work in that. So you can't take an example from a kind environment, which has less variation, into a work environment where it has like massive variations and
Right.
expect it to work because it won't work. In some cases, it may work, but as a very, very tiny probability that it may work because only when those two variables that you have identified matches and every single other variable stays as a constant control. So to me, probability, it will not work. So we only take the common denomination. Okay, these two variables that we have, what is it? This is like, hey, there are weaknesses in both the kind environment and a wicked environment, right? In the wicked environment, the only thing we can do to up to that point is identify it, and then how do we
Right.
mitigate that, and then use a different method than other than the
yourself like I mean
right.
like in the kind of environment the methodology is problem
And
solved by
and
you
and, and and
solving
in
it
the
like
kind of environment, because you have less variable, there's less solutions
right yes
for
yes
that. But in a wicked environment, you have more variables, so therefore there's multitude of
yes
solutions as well. So you
that's a
don't need
huge
to
difference
constrain yourself to
yes
the solutions of
of
the
Chris
kind
go out on a
environment.
tennis court and go hit 5,000 backhands
Yeah.
until it's not until it's no longer the backhand like now then you open up 10 other backhands and you're like now you need to go check the next backhand off your list like that's how you become Carlos Alcaraz. You watch the best tennis players in the world like play a tennis match and you're like what don't you do well like I mean there's like I honestly I don't know at a certain point in time like there is no longer weaknesses, you know what I mean, to go pick on like when you get to be so good. Like Novak Djokovic, if I was just watching him play and for the first time, I would go, well, I don't know I don't know what your weakness is. You're so good at all of this stuff, like top to bottom, right? Like, so then I would go, well, I guess it's just, you and I just need to battle. Like, then it's a mental thing. Then it's a,
Mm-hmm.
then it's a,
I
then it,
mean,
then
it's
it becomes,
always weaknesses
right.
because it's always opposition because you can't be both tall and short, right? You
Well,
can't.
yes. I'm saying you can get really creative. I'm saying, but to come up with a strategy that like I'm saying it's so obvious when you're playing against players of my level of going, well, I just need to watch for 5 minutes and I'll figure out, yeah, this is that guy's out of the list of, you know, 50 techniques that you need to master. Like I'll go down the list and I'll go, yeah, that's the one that I'm gonna go pick on. Eventually I can find that, right?
Right,
Like
because like I say, inside
there
of
doesn't
kind
exist for those
environment,
guys.
you only slice a certain number of variable. Because, for
Right.
example, I told you about the Nelson Mandela, right? He's a great leader, but he's a terrible father. He cannot be
Oh,
both great leaders and good father because he has to be out there to lead people. He can't be in the home, right? So you
right.
cannot be in both places at the same
Oh, you
time.
can be
So
a parent can be a leader too. You're a leader
right, but I'm
virtually,
talking about the
you know.
leader in
Yeah,
Nelson Mandela's
in Nelson Mandela's
situation,
case. Yeah.
right? Because you can be both outside and leading people outside and
Right,
leading the
right.
field, and because you cannot be a great businessman trying to do all these deals and be a good father because you have to spend time somewhere. You can't be spending time in both places. So
Sure.
there's always cases where there's both weaknesses, right, and strength,
Yeah.
and they oppose each other. So have to pick one. So, for example, let's say a guy is really good at tennis, backhand, forehand, and all that, but he may sacrifice some other uh, pieces to rob the time to go and work on his backhand and forehand at the same time. Because for you,
Yeah.
you have to work on with Luca, you have to work with your
Right.
with your wife, and you have
A
to
job
do
and
other job, do other stuff,
right,
right? So
right,
so you can't both work on both because something has to give,
right.
right? Because that's what I'm saying is because that's where you're gonna have to understand, hey, if you're gonna do this, right, somebody's gonna be at home and take care of the things that you can't take care of. And
Yeah.
so
That's true.
in
That's very
in
true.
in the in a
I mean,
wicked environment, we
that's
have to rely
very
on
true.
meaningful relationship. And so this is
That's
why we
very
as a
true.
human being developed the need, the compulsory need to have the other people that you share your ideas with that can receive the thoughts that align with what you think,
Yeah.
because that creates the synergy between the two, because you and I, right? You and I can be, we can go and do things together, and I can do one thing, you can do another thing. But when you combine them, it's like tenfold. It's not
Yeah.
double, right? And so that's what I'm saying. I can go, hey,
Really good point.
I'm good at building stuff, but now I want to go sell stuff, be creative as well, right? You think I can do all that, regardless how much time I have? I probably cannot master both fields.
Yep.
It's just not possible, because one is I'm not aligned to learning how, like psychology. So let's say I know how to do psychology, and I do know psychology. I just can't apply it. It's just not natural. I have to always think about it. So there's always this delay.
Well, what do you think? What do you think psychologists do?
What do you mean?
Like they're always, I mean, that is psychology, thinking about stuff and helping
right. But I'm saying is that you have a certain affinity for something. You're born with a certain talent that is a result of your combinations and patterns of your DNA, right? For example, for me, it's like, if you say, hey, True, go out there and like, have a party. For me to go to a party, it's like, it's torture. But you tell me, hey, go build something. Like, hey, be in a garage and build a chair, build a house, build whatever. I'm in my zone. So the thing is, most people think, hey, when you do that thing, that's a fucking boring. But to me, it isn't. It's just because it's not because I want it. It's just because my genes say that in order for me to be joyful, I have to do these things. So I would rather go build something in a garage by myself. Yeah. Than for me to go to a party. Because for me to go to a party, you know what I do in the party? I just find a little couch in the corner and I sit there for like 4 hours. So I hate going over to my mother's in-laws house, because that's all I do. I don't like to talk to anyone, because the conversation isn't interesting.
That's not true. You're doing it right now. Like, I mean,
no. The thing is,
I know what you're saying. It's
about alignment. It's about alignment, because the thing is, when I share an idea with you, you have the receptivity. Right, and your response.
We're talking about stuff you like to talk about. Like if your cousins or your uncles or your aunts and your family,
they don't talk about the same thing. And I say things to them. They look like me, like I'm this fucking weird person.
So this book that I'm trying to get you to read, called Love and Work, by Marcus Buckingham. This is what I was writing down today. Is he asks the doesn't matter questions. So like, I love it. Like if you said, I love it when, blah, 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 blah. So you love it when we're talking together, right? But does it matter? Does it matter who you're talking to? Does it matter where you're talking to them? Does it matter why you're talking to them? Does it matter what you're talking about? Does it matter how you're talking? Like all these different questions of like unpacking, like, because there is other elements as to, it's not that you don't love to talk. Like, that is not true. I know you say this all the time of like, I don't really like to talk. Like, that is not true. You talk to me every night for 3 fucking years, of every fucking night for an hour. Like, I mean, and it's not like I have to coax it out of you or something like that. It's not like I have to limber you up to get you to go. Like you like to talk. Like it's like, but the details of the love that you like to bring out in the world matter, is what you're saying. Like, you don't like to do that when you're at your parents' house or your family's house and they're around a bunch of people that you don't give a shit about, talking about the topics you want to talk about. So you just sit there and you're like, well, I don't want to talk to you about, football, or, well, no, you probably do want to talk. I don't want to talk to you about.
I do like football, but people don't talk about football. They talk about some stuff it doesn't matter to me. And so to me, conversations like it's awkward.
Like this is your problem, right? Like,
it's like I'm talking to the armadillo in the desert when I'm a beaver.
Exactly, but would you be shocked to know, like, that when I like past jobs, right? Like I've always had a lot of like close friends and stuff that I work with, and it usually came from a lot of like these kinds of conversations, where I truly do care about them, and we're working and we're trying to figure out how to help each other, and it developed a lot of close relationships and friendships with people that I've worked with. But like, if they asked me to go to the Christmas party, like for the company, I'm like, I don't want to do that. They're like, why? And I'm like, I don't want to do that. Like, I just don't want to go sit around and talk about, like, where you're going on vacation with some random person that I don't give a shit about. Like, I mean, like, I just don't give a fuck. Like, I don't want to talk about that. Like, so like you and I, like, it's no different. Like, I just don't want to be there.
Yeah, I mean, of course, that's the thing is, your brains receive this feedback, right? And so let's say you go and you talk to somebody about let's say you go and talk to your wife about I don't run for trains. Like, see, what the hell are you saying?
Oh, this is every night. This is every night. It might as well just be her typing on a computer, and I bring something up, and she's like, "What? What do you want?"
But and conversation doesn't continue. It just
I mean, yeah,
it just dies right there.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I'm saying is if you talk to me about, let's say I texted my brother, say, hey, you university. He's like, what the fuck? But if you
Like,
tell me you university, I said, no, this thing ain't good because you did blah blah blah. And you
right,
and
right.
I can get into it, like into the fray, and then talk for hours because you and I understand what we mean, right?
Right.
And the feedback is encouraging you to talk. But when you go and talk to somebody out there, you're in a different world. You're being like, hey, I'm the alien from like I was saying, you're in a um you're out of your element, and you go there, and the
Sure.
conversation can never continue. It's like, hey,
You're like
how
an
are you?
asshole.
I'm good, right?
You're like a drone. You're like an asshole. Like nobody, people after they meet you, they're like, that guy sucks. Like what's that guy's problem? Like he's an asshole, and you're like, no, I'm not. I'm not an asshole. But like, yeah, I probably was an asshole when I was talking to you because I didn't care about you and I didn't care about the conversation. Like so
Yeah, the
maybe I
conversation isn't stimulating. It's not firing the neurons in your brains, and then you
right.
just shut down. And so to me, this is the experience I have with going to the party, because for me is I'm very very straightforward, right? Meaning that I am not the kind of person that is going to please anyone. I don't care who you are. If you don't align with me, I'm not out there to hurt you or do anything bad to you and any of that. That has nothing to do. But I'm not going to put an effort in to fake something, because one of the things that I told you about, man, it I would rather that it takes so much energy for me to lie to you, right? To make
Right.
something up, right? But if I try to be nice and be like polite and have a conversation, I have to make up stuff.
Right.
And to me, that's so hard. I
So,
can't
so
do it.
hard.
And so
I
for me,
agree with you.
I'd rather tell you straight to your face, hey,
I don't want to talk.
I don't
Yeah.
like, because then you talking about, hey, you university. Oh yeah, that's good. No, I say that sucks, right?
Right. Right.
I don't pamper anything.
Yeah,
If
but
I don't, if I
I did, but I disagree. So I will will you down. If I'm not just letting that
no,
go
no,
because
no,
I
no,
like
no.
that. I like that. No,
I'm
no,
talking about
I
my feelings. Like
yeah, yeah, of
my
course, yeah, yeah,
you can probably get me to be, you can probably like win
to
me
bend.
over
Right,
time.
yeah, yeah,
It's just right now my feeling is that, and I tell you my feeling, and you know exactly what it is. So I'm like a book, and
yeah,
that's how I operate, because that's why to me integrity is like number two, right? Number two, because it rings so true to me that it is so much work for me to tell you something that I didn't mean. I have to make up. I don't even have to lie to you, as long as
right,
I don't say anything that is absolutely that I know for a fact that's true. Because if I don't know for sure, I say, hey, I don't know, and this is what
right,
I think. But if I don't know, I won't say it, right? Because I'm just making it up, and that irks me in a way that I don't like that feeling,
right.
right? And so for me to go and talk to people, like whether it's my mom, my dad, or my in-laws, or the people that I don't know, I say, well, I don't know who you are, and you saying things that I don't agree with. What should I do? So for me, I say, well, okay, do I want to tell you straight? And sometimes I do, right? So if you continue to press on, I'll tell you.
Right.
But I would rather not open my mouth, because whatever you say doesn't align with what I believe in. So I just keep my mouth shut
So it matters. Like is the what I was saying is the details of love matters. Like
of
the
course it
details
matters.
matter. Like I mean
Of
it's so
course.
like it's what do I love about tennis, or what do I love about pickleball, or what is my developing love of pickleball or writing or this conversation or the culture or reading or whatever, like learning new stuff. Like what really is it? Like because I don't love reading, like because I hate fucking fiction books. Every time we come, I mean, how many times have I said to you? Every single time that I have a fiction book, I'm like, I fucking hated this fucking book. Like this sucked. I mean, it's like torture to me to read a fiction book. Like I mean, I and like I was talking, I remember I was talking to this one dude that I worked with at Salesforce. His name was Teddy. He was such a good person. Like I loved our conversations. Like he was like somebody that I should probably reach back out to him just because he was really, really, really a good person. I would love to stay connected with him. But he was following along with some of the stuff that I was doing, and he had read the book I Can't Imagine, because his fiance was a NICU nurse, and anyway, we had a mutual connection, and it was good, right? He recommended what was the book about Achilles, the song of Achilles, and then he recommended 100 Years of Solitude to me. After I read it, I was trying to be nice, and I was like, hey, what do you love? He was like, I love fiction books, and I'm like, okay, like, well, tell me what you like, so I was like, I said, actually what I asked him was, tell me what the book you learned the most from in your life. And he goes, the Song of Achilles. He was like, I know it's a fiction book, but I learned the most from this book. And I go, okay, fine, I'll read it. So I read it, I tried it. It was hard for me to stomach the book, like just to get through it, not because the book was bad. It was beautifully written, it was really nice, it had a good story. I just was like, it was like snooze fest to me. Like, I mean, literally, I remember at that time, I was at that time, Luca was I was the one putting him to sleep every night, because Felicia was still working at home, so she would get him up in the mornings, and I would put him to sleep at night. And then when she went back to the office, when her school eventually started back up after COVID, we flipped. So I do mornings now, and she does nights. So I was still putting Luca to sleep every night, and I remember, and that was when he was still drinking a bottle before bed every night and whatever. Right. So I would have to like have him in there for like 20 minutes. I'd put on an audiobook. I remember falling asleep to that book in particular almost every fucking night, that I'm just going, as I'm playing this thing, as a bottle's in my hand, and I'm trying to feed Luca, put him to sleep, and I mean, like, this is how it's like. It's almost like being bored to me, I like it just doesn't pique my curiosity. Well, the funny thing about 100 Years of Solitude, I read that. I started reading that book, and do you know what that book is?
No.
Okay,
first time I heard of it.
It's like one of the most famous fiction books of all time. It's called 100 Years of Solitude. It's written by, I don't even remember who the guy is that wrote it.
Gabriel Garcia Marquez.
Yes. So it was written. God, when was this thing written? I can't remember. It was originally published in 1967, and it was about like the Hispanic world, Latino world, kind of stuff like that, and it was a really great fiction book from this guy. And, I thought it'd be a good book to read with my wife. So we tried to start it off, and both of us were like, snooze fest, like this book is not good. So, but I told him I would read the book. So I said I was going to fucking finish it. You know when I finished this book?
Did you finish it?
Did I finish it? Yeah. So I did.
Okay.
Did you know when I finished it?
No.
Where is it? It's like gotta be like right here. It was like one of the last books. Oh, here it is. Yeah, well, 357.
57.
You know when I started it?
Probably a long time. April.
Book 100. It sat. It was one of the only books that I've ever. It just sat in my library like a 3/4 or 1/4 finished, and I saw it every single time. But I would just pass by. Like, I can't keep doing this. I can't fucking keep doing this. I can't fucking keep doing this. That was this reflection.
It took that much willpower to do something you don't want to do. So
only because I leaned on my values, and I said, virtue is what you do when no one is watching, right? Because this was about meaningful relationships. Like, Teddy was a really good guy. Like, and I owed it to him. I promised him I would do it. It's about integrity. This is about, and I wasn't gonna, like, I could have easily never finished that book. I could have easily never written this reflection. I could have easily, and I'm spoiling this reflection for the future.
But you can always be honest. Hey,
right.
I started the book. I can't finish it. I mean, just like I told you about
I made
Yvonne, the book Let Me People Go Surfing.
Oh, yeah, right, yeah.
I started, I can't finish it because
yeah.
I get so angry with that guy.
Right. Well, I don't, and now it's a different story. Like, you had nothing attached to that. Like, now
everybody was recommending it. They said,
right.
It's a great book and blah blah blah.
Culture. Great book. It's the worst book about culture. I don't even know what the truth is, though, the only reason I did this was because of Teddy, right? And because I promised him I would do it. and I don't, and I'm not going to not do it. When I said I was going to start something, I agreed to do it. And he said this is one of the books that he learned the most from. So fine, I'm going to do this because that was what that was about. But like, I don't have that problem anymore. There's been multiple books since Yomo ended, the 365 journey ended, where I've been like, this book sucks. I'm not doing this. Like, and I just deleted it out, stopped it like 20 minutes in or something like that. And I just haven't gone back to it. Like that, and that feels so freeing. And I agree with you about the whole.
I mean, that's what you did in the beginning. It's like you finished every single thing because you're so competitive and enduring. You never quit. You have that strong character. Yeah. And then eventually I said, well, I don't know. If there's something you don't want to do, stop doing this.
It was about the journey.
I told you that earlier in the beginning because that's not my cup of tea. It's something I want to do. And yeah, you can try it, but no one. The thing to me is like, okay, if you don't read it, then you don't read it. And,
I know. But that wasn't what I was reading. I wasn't reading any of this stuff for reading. I wasn't so I don't love to read. What I love to do is I love to learn. This is why I love nonfiction books and I love natural history books. I love when I discover something about fucking dinosaurs and I'm coming back and telling you about, like dinosaur shit or something like that, and I'm like, that's really what I like to do. It has nothing to, this is why I brought this up. It's about the details of love matters, right? It is not that I'm not a writer either. I love writing about this stuff. Like if you asked me to go write a fiction book, like
it's torture. It's like, I'll think of a scenario, put a character into, give him a persona, blah blah blah. I mean, like you can give me all the rules. It's just not gonna make me a good writer because my brains go whoop.
Right. But you asked me to write about this shit, and you're like, oh, well, that makes sense. I mean, I can make that captivating. I can write about my daughter's life, and like you can feel, like my spirit coming through that. Like I mean, you read that book. I mean, like I know I've read it. Like I like it, and I wrote it. I lived it. Like it's one of those things where it's like it is hard to not feel. But like I'm not a good writer. Like I would never call myself a good writer. Like, and I would never even think of myself as a writer. I just was able to tell that story because the details matter of love, right? Like I love my daughter and I love her, everything that she helped me to learn and to teach. And that's why the love comes out in this stuff, right? Like, I mean, it fucking matters, right? So
absolutely.
So summing up the backhand, like whole entire thing is, I think I'm in your camp 100% of the kind environment versus wicked environment stamp on this particular thing being, you should identify a backhand, but like most of the time you're going to be in a wicked environment, so you don't have to put in the deliberate practice and work to fix that backhand.
Don't fix it yourself.
Right, yourself. Yes. Yeah.
Get someone else to fix it.
Exactly. Yes. That's the key. Like in a wicked environment, in a kind environment,
which is the only thing that matters because we live in the wicked environment.
well, that's true. But I mean, but sometimes games are in a kind environment like tennis, like or chess.
Right. The thing is, when you're in the kind environment, but the kind environment doesn't take up all of your time as a human being.
No.
And so you're gonna spend most of your time dealing, because even when you're playing tennis, you have to deal with people, right? Not just like in the game, you have to, people talk to you and blah blah blah. It's still a wicked environment, even though you're playing a game and you're telling them to adhere to the rules of tennis. They may not. They may not. Hey, it's out. I don't know. It's in.
Oh God,
you know what I mean? So are they adhering to the rules of tennis?
Right. That's the worst.
You can tell them to do it, but whether they do or not, it's still up to their free will to decide whether they're going to follow or they're going to cheat. So you still have to deal with wicked environment elements.
That's fair. It's a fair point. But I still think you hit the nail on the head, though. I think this is a anyway.
I'm a good carpenter, so usually I'm pretty good at hitting the nails on the head. Literally.
Nice. All right. Well, let's we can wrap this one up with the question of what backhands have you identified in your meaningful work activities, and what are you doing to embrace them head on? So that does not mean that you have to physically answer your own problem, like as we just talked about, but you still have to acknowledge them and address them in some way, shape, or form.
You have to address them, definitely. Yeah. It's just that there are so many solutions out there,
Yes.
Don't have to go and work on them. Just like, I can't sell, so don't go and learn how to sell now. So, well, then
Right.
I can't code, and I forget how to code.
Right. That's a great point. And I think that's probably the most important point in this whole entire thing. So thanks for joining. That was a fun one, and we will see you for part 3 on Monday.
Yep, sounds good. See you.